Hello. This video was filmed before the events that transpired on Twitter in regards to James Somerton, who is referenced a lot in this video. While this video will not be going over James Somerton's attempt on his own life, I wanted to add this forward to send kind regards to James's family and friends. I hope James is okay, and I hope his mention throughout this video isn't seen as completely disrespectful or inappropriate. Given what happened during the conception of this video, please send your kind regards to the Somerton family at this time, and I hope James is doing well and getting the help he needs if he is still okay. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, me lazy Bedhead. Alright, I'll explain the fit because pretending like this is all normal is not gonna make it any less awkward. I got a lot of comments in my last video recording at the computer desk that I look like a older brother character from an early 2000s Disney Channel show. This is my attempt of doubling down. Actually, you know what? You know who I actually fucking look like? Here, just give me a second.
I was born without a chin.
Kill me. With the fucking senpai hat and everything. No! Lazy is here. Yeah, more like she was, before she threw herself in front of a train. So I'm gonna try and give as much detail and context to the situation, probably more than necessary, but y'all know me by now. I don't ever know when to shut up about something that genuinely interests me. So I'm not an avid viewer of Essence of Thought or Vangelina Skov, but I'm familiar with both of their content, and I'm also familiar with both of their videos about Lily Orchard that started this whole fiasco. But I did want to talk about an underlying issue with, what would you call it, like, call-out culture or the accountability crowd that I think this situation highlights. So this story is really hard to follow because a lot of extra characters that have absolutely nothing to do with any of this gets randomly name dropped. But I'm gonna focus on the main characters in the title of this video and then address the smaller players throughout where it's most relevant. So, who are we talking about today?
So what we are going to talk about today, though, is the updates regarding her legal case.
Vangelina Skov is a content creator that got big off of covering the Illuminati scandal. But before that, she was put on the map after her coverage of Team Pinata and Dissociate did. Vangelina has over 100,000 subscribers with an online presence totaling 6 years. She's made herself a brand on YouTube, getting sponsors, a Patreon earning, and merchandise. She is what many would consider a drama YouTuber, or someone who covers ongoing spats on the internet.
Hey there, my name is Ethel Thurston, she, her, they, them.
Now, Essence of Thought, or Ethel, as I will be referring to for the remainder of this video, has been on YouTube for a little while longer, 10 years to be exact. The Essence of Thought YouTube channel has 43,000 subscribers, and Ethel is the co-owner. The channel produces content revolving around LGBTQ topics, secularism, feminism, and ethnic equality. You could kind of call this like breadtube type of content, but also Ethel has been openly criticizing a lot of breadtubers such as ContraPoints, Xander Hall, and Vosh, as well as those on the Republican side of the political commentary sphere such as Blair White, Matt Walsh, and Rose of Dawn. The thing that Ethel is most well known for is her series covering Lily Orchard, which is a 7-part series going into the entirety of Lily's online history. I do have to point this out as well before we continue that Lily Orchard and Ethel are both trans women. Ethel and Lily have faced a lot of transphobic harassment and comments online because they've been documenting their transition since its infancy. And I want to make this clear that this channel, this space is LGBTQ friendly, and any sort of transphobic comments towards Lily or Ethel is going to be heavily moderated. Mainly because, well, for one, the fact that people are transgender in this story, it doesn't really mean that much in the grand scheme of things. If their trans identities are used as like an actual talking point against them, you kind of already lost the argument because that's not really what we're talking about. It's ultimately irrelevant to what this whole situation is actually going to be covering. And the second reason is because Ethel has made it a point in their content that a comment section is proof of someone's transphobia. And I am of the belief that a content creator can't really control absolutely everything an audience does or says, because we don't really choose our audience. Not really. I mean, we can make content that appeals to a specific crowd and say stuff like, well, if you're this kind of person, I don't want you watching my videos, or something like that, right? However, when you get to a specific size, there is an inevitability that there will be people in your audience that subscribe to you and watch your content that you don't want to be there representing your brand. But still, I want to make this a space for Ethel to respond without being bombarded with negative comments, calling her like a man or some shit. So let's give her a chance to engage and read critical comments that aren't so hostile. Ethel won't engage with the argument at all if this space is gonna just clown on her. So now that I've presented the players, let me talk briefly about their shared person of interest that started this war of plagiarism.
Hello, everyone!
So, Lily Orchard is a cartoon commentary / review channel that discusses My Little Pony. Their most controversial and popular video that most of you might be more familiar with is Lily's video discussing Steven Universe and how she personally believes it's hot garbage. Lily has had a long, weird history online, outside of like the over-the-top angry commentary on kids' cartoons. To go over this like really quickly, she made an alternative account to be her fake online girlfriend named Tara Callie. Tara's backstory was that she had like a sister who died of hypothermia when they fled their family from Colorado. But what's weird is that Lily like added this strange part of Tara's backstory, which is that Tara was an incestuous pedophile who had sex with her sister. Why? So this relationship would end when Tara died in a car crash, and then Lily would announce that they were transitioning and kind of moved on with their lives, and then just never addressed the Tara situation ever again. She also tried to push her ex-friend Josh Scorcher into a relationship with a minor that she shipped like IRL, so she's a pro shipper. Lovely. She broke off a friendship for something as simple as not playing World of Warcraft, and wrote a My Little Pony fanfic called Stockholm, which included underage sexual assault of a minor, who is also the main character's adopted sister. Something about incest, man. What's up with that? So as you can imagine, Lily is a peak lolcow. She might even get like a dedicated like a Bedhead Bizarre Lolcow Adventure episode on her, maybe, if I remember to dig deeper, or if I care. Now, completely unrelated and unbiased, but I actually would recommend that you do check out Essence of Thought's videos on Lily Orchard. I think it's really refreshing to see a trans person going after another trans person for predatory behavior or lolcow antics. I think since they're both trans women, seeing Ethel's take on Lily is very refreshing, because up until that point, a lot of the coverage on Lily was either inadvertently or directly transphobic at times. And they put a lot of work into this series, and also spoke directly to victims of Lily Orchard, and because they have done a good job covering Lily so extensively, it makes what happens next so interesting. So, as I pointed out, Ethel has made a 7-part series spanning like hours in length talking about Lily Orchard. So Vangelina Skov would make a 40-minute rundown, as she does, of an online character. She was recommended to cover Lily via her Twitter DMs, as explained in her most recent video, which we will go over in just a minute. But what's gotten Vangelina in some hot waters in regards to her coverage of Lily Orchard is that she seemingly has very similar screenshots that were also used in Essence of Thoughts series. This led Ethel to believe that Vangelina plagiarized her videos. Now, when you look at the evidence in regards to like the screenshots that Vangelina has in her videos, they are pretty much an identical match to the screenshots that were used in Essence of Thoughts videos. There was also like specific word choices that Vangelina says that Ethel says were taken directly from her video scripts. Because in every single video that is on the Essence of Thought YouTube page, the scripts are actually fully available in their description. So this is the entirety of the script that was written for Ethel's latest video in regards to Vangelina Skov. Essence of Thought would make an hour-long video talking about Vangelina Skov called Vangelina Skov Plagiarized My Lily Orchard series with the hashtag Just Another Illuminati, and this is of course in reference to the fact that Vangelina has covered Illuminati extensively on her channel. To summarize this video, because we have the full script, I've seen the video and I have the full script in front of me, so I know which parts to highlight to be able to summarize this whole thing. So basically, Ethel shows how a lot of the screenshots used by Vangelina were clearly screenshots taken from her video series.
So let's start with the first image that appears in Skov's video at 22:16, taken from our Ink Rose video as seen at 1:44. Let's overlay that using 50% transparency to reveal that yes, it's a 1-to-1 match on the zoom factor. Moving on next to the profile pic, since the background is not visible, we see Lily is sporting the exact same smug face on a purple background in both images. Lastly, looking at Lily Orchard's username, we see that it is highlighted in green in both images, making this a perfect match.
So, as you can see, this is a screenshot that was used in Vangelina's video. This is some sort of Tumblr response from Lily Orchard, and this is the same screenshot that comes from Essence of Thoughts series. As you can see, they're basically the same screenshot, albeit Vangelina's, for whatever reason, appears to be like in lower quality. She also cites various comments made in Vangelina's video that match something that Ethel has said in her own series. And when Ethel tried to email Vangelina about the situation, she was met with a contact to a lawyer.
This was sent on Wednesday, the 21st of February 2024. I would finally receive a response on Thursday the 22nd, stating, quote, "Thank you for following up. All further correspondence can be sent to our lawyer," end quote. She then gave me the email address of a lawyer in Canada. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this threw me for a bit, as Skov either lives in Dublin or Macedonia, at least according to her Twitter and Wikitube profile. Then, my wife Adita, who is also a lawyer, pointed out the custom email Skov uses, at Solaro MGMT, with Solaro Management being a Canadian-based media management company.
Ethel also points out some seemingly odd events that happened before her video released, such as Vangelina changing her sources in the description to include other sources, but did not include Ethel as a source.
About midway through the 21st, I checked back in to find the updated description sourcing various people, minus myself. This to me was an immediate red flag. That she knew to source these people the moment I questioned her suggests very strongly that whoever is running things is fully cognizant of what they are doing. That's to say, Skov or Skov's team know they're plagiarizing, they're just relying on nobody being willing to take on a channel of her size.
As well as Vangelina not monitoring the transphobic comments being made about Lily Orchard.
I was shocked by just how much anti-trans rhetoric there was in the comments section. So I went through, collecting a bunch of these comments, up to 24 of them, before just giving up. I couldn't continue because of how depressing it was as a trans person. Here is the wall of bigotry I created. Note that I included my own comment to show just how many of these comments were posted in the 3 days after my own post.
The final section of Ethel's video goes into how this experience of being plagiarized has affected her mentally, discussing being pretty tight on money after a foot injury, and indirectly saying that Vangelina's video was taking food out of Ethel and their partners' mouths.
I have a comminuted fracture at the base of the first metatarsal on my right foot. That's the socket joint shown here.
You know what? I'm about to say it. Okay, I don't care that you broke your elbow.
You may not have thought to, but in 100 small ways, you have snatched the bread from my starving mouth, pilfering our work to create a monstrosity, something that is antithetical to everything we are building towards the essence of thought.
There's also a section where Ethel opens up about being a survivor of rape as a child and then groomed online. And this is brought up because Vangelina mentioned an incident involving Lily Orchard pressuring a minor to watch an 18+ stream. Ethel concludes that Vangelina not including the name of the victim was an intentional choice and was meant to strip the voice away from the victim. And as a survivor herself, she found that not including the victim by name was exploitive of the victims of Lily by turning them into numbers instead of recognizing them as people. And that's roughly quoting what she said. I'll find the quote here because she left the entire script in the description of this video. So, to quote Ethel directly verbatim. So, returning to the misinformation, Skov doesn't even do us the decency of going back to double check the specific context of her assertions. She just makes the most generic statements possible, and that's it. Which is not only dangerous to how it gives Lily Orchard ammunition, it's also fucking insulting. As with all plagiarism, it is insulting to me and Levi as artists, but more important than that, it is insulting to Levi specifically as someone whose experience as another victim of Lily Orchard was instrumental to many of the context-specific insights we had, with Levi having literally coined the phrase Lily Orchard's mind prison to describe the atmosphere of control and manipulation, like discussed regarding the whole anonymous question thing. Insight, I might add, that was also based on over 24 years of personal suffering at the hands of other abusers. All of that was just stripped away for a cheap cash grab. It's also insulting to the topic in general, along with all of us who have been made to suffer through similar violence. As someone who was raped as a child and later groomed online, I am personally disgusted by just how half-arsed Skov's coverage of the topic is. Her commentary on the issue is worse than worthless. It is actively harmful. Now, if I am going to be like structurally critical of Vangelina Skov's video on Lily Orchard, it's pretty basic. And I don't mean that at all to be an insult. I personally just appreciate like big deep dive videos that show all of the context and screenshots of events in like timeline order. Ethel's series breaks up specific Lily Orchard controversies and dedicates whole videos to covering those specific controversies. And because of this, I do believe that Ethel did a bit more research than Vangelina has. And because she's worked on researching Lily Orchard for this long, it's fair to say that Ethel knows her shit about Lily Orchard. I can understand to an extent why she feels that Vangelina bastardized her work because her series is so extensive and has so many screenshots to boot. Whilst Vangelina is only like, 40 minutes and only scratches the surface. But unless Vangelina has like an active interest in a topic like she seems to have for like the Illuminati story, there's a lot of tact there to get all of the context and information. It is entirely possible that Vangelina just didn't think that a deep dive was necessary. But Ethel doesn't really give Vangelina that courtesy. Not only does Vangelina avoid to credit Essence of Thought series when she first initially sent the emails to ask for credit, but then sending her lawyers as an immediate response, it kind of makes it look like she's trying to silence someone with a legal threat who only wanted to get recognition for their work. Now, before we get into like how Vangelina responds, there are a couple things about like Ethel's expose that turn me off immediately. And it's not because I think Ethel is being like intentionally dishonest or anything. It's more so just me like questioning her intentions. So what I have on screen right now is the emails that Essence of Thought sent to Vangelina Skov. We have both emails and I'm going to read this first top one and we'll get to this second one in just a second. Hi, I'm reaching out to you because I've learned your channel has plagiarized several of my videos. Your channel's video, Lily Orchard, YouTube's biggest creep, Lily Pete, contains several screenshots which are identical to the ones from my videos. The presenter copies several of my phrases almost word for word, and the presenter references the source of our victim testimony who has not shared their story anywhere else. Plagiarism is not only morally wrong, but also a violation of copyright law. Keep this phrase in mind because we're going to be talking about like plagiarism and copyright later. So I expect this to be corrected. Essence of Thought has always intended for our resources to be freely used by others. So usually we would only require you to link our channel in the video description, credit us for the screenshots, and have the presenter cite us whenever one of our ideas or pieces of evidence is used in a video. Since you, your writers, or your researchers did not do so, we feel we are entitled to 30% of the video's monetary value as compensation based on the fact that 13 minutes of a 38-minute video are clearly plagiarized. That includes AdSense, Patreon earnings for the month of February, and sponsorship earnings from HelloFresh. These actions are to be taken along with issuing a correction or apology to all social medias, as well as including an explanation of the issue at the topic of the video description run by us first explaining the error. Thank you for your time, Ethel Thurston. Now, in discussing the emails itself, Ethel says that she admittedly sounded strong in saying that Vangelina copied her word for word, because, like, in all fairness, that's not really what happened.
The second correction relates to the sentence, "The presenter copies several of my phrases almost word for word," which is a bit strong. Again, when I wrote this, I was coming down from an anxiety spike, passing stuff between myself and Levi. I've shown you the evidence regarding the comment about Lily sending herself anonymous questions and the concluding narrative of Stockholm. That's what this was referenced to.
Vangelina did not, word for word, say exactly what Ethel said. They might have presented the same controversies and come to similar conclusions, but it's not word for word of Ethel's work. And when you really think about it, plagiarizing Essence of Thought would actually not be that hard to do, considering that they provide every single script for every single video they release in their descriptions. So it would literally not be that hard for Vangelina to just go, copy, paste into her own script. But that is clearly not what she did, because her and Ethel are not saying the exact same things word for word. Now, Ethel was open to the idea that they could have came to the same conclusion, but what really turns me off from this email look, if I'm going to be honest, I'm actually kind of shocked that Ethel even shares this as like a showmanship of fairness and diplomacy on her part. And this is mainly because this email is, in my personal opinion, right, this is just extortion. Not only does Ethel demand financial compensation, but also she doesn't provide any sort of examples in this email of where the plagiarism even is. Like, when you read this, it just says, your channel's video, Lily Orchard, contains several screenshots which are identical to the ones from my video, and the presenter copies several of my phrases word for word, and the presenter references sources from our victim testimony, whatever that really is supposed to mean. But if Ethel says that this word for word part is too harsh and that she probably wouldn't have said it was word for word, then her claim to plagiarism is several screenshots which are identical to the ones from my videos. But you don't provide in this email, like, there's no link, there's no images to where Vangelina has plagiarized these screenshots of yours. So how can Vangelina properly credit you if you don't provide any examples of where your work was used? Like, how is she supposed to properly credit you if you don't show her what exactly she stole? So Ethel brings up like HBomberguy's videos on plagiarism a lot throughout her expose, and she references it because she believes that this level of plagiarism is to the level of James Somerton.
Mere months after HBomberguy released his bombshell of a video on this very topic, someone who has dozens of videos covering Illuminati's death spiral thought it'd be a great idea to just rip myself and a bunch of other people off, only to then double down in the exact same way Illuminati did when caught in the act.
Now, Vangelina has also criticized HBomberguy's video. To be more specific on what she actually said, she didn't agree with HBomberguy's assessment on drama channels all just being like plagiarizing off of each other. Other than that one comment though, Vangelina said that she's like thoroughly liked the HBomberguy video. She did unlist her video talking about the HBomberguy stuff, which for some reason Ethel took this as like some sort of vindication that Vangelina was a plagiarist. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that like Ethel and many other people saw HBomberguy talk about drama channels being basically like a plagiarist content farm space, right? And he even links Vangelina Skov as one of his examples of drama channels that are just blatant plagiarism, right?
I've seen the compilation I made of Blair copying Dia in like 40 different places at this point, but what's really amazing about it is that it's now crossed the drama mill event horizon.
Rightfully, Vangelina felt the need to respond, and she said that she didn't agree with HBomberguy's stance on drama content. And then she unlisted the video after poorly responding to backlash on Twitter, self-admittedly. So Ethel sees this as proof that Vangelina is running from claims of being a plagiarist herself.
Well, I do understand what people are angry about is how I reacted to people getting angry at me, because I reacted really childishly, and I'm going to be honest, not a good look. I didn't understand the people who were furious, and I just didn't think it was that serious, so I made some childish tweets about it, didn't think about it, and I did react childishly, and I think sometimes I just forget that I have an audience. I just don't think about what I'm tweeting.
And look, whilst I understand the point that HBomberguy is trying to make in regards to like drama content, I think it's flawed in the sense that, well, for one, a lot of drama channels and a lot of like content creators in the drama sphere, they all work together. They all share evidence when they're reporting on or they're looking into the same like dramas or spats online. And of course, they're all going to use the same screenshots because they're all talking about the same shit. And the second thing is that publicly accessible information being talked about en masse by multiple people giving their own commentary and opinions isn't really enough for me anyways to say that it's all just like a plagiarist content farm. And this actually allows me to transition into my next problem with Ethel's expose. So I'm gonna say this from my vague understanding of how copyright law works. Since Ethel says this video is in violation of copyright based on plagiarism, right? Like that's what she says in her email. So, I'm just gonna say this, right? Screenshots from publicly accessible sources, which in this case is Tumblr, a social media platform, that cannot be claimed under copyright. If that information can be searched up and screenshots can be taken by like multiple people, you're not protected under copyright law to claim protection rights on a screenshot of someone else's words on the internet. Like, okay, so for example, if I were to take a screenshot of something my friend said on Twitter and I post that screenshot and give it like a funny caption, then someone saves my screenshot on their device and re-uploads it with a different caption. I cannot sue them for copyright or file DMCAs to protect my intellectual property. I didn't write the tweet that I took a screenshot of. It doesn't come from my social media page. It's not my post. It's someone else's post that I am reposting a picture of. There's no creative value in taking a screenshot of something someone else says on the internet. If anything, the author of that tweet I took the screenshot of might have more grounds for copyright infringement. It probably won't work because, like, claiming a tweet as copywritten work is dumb. But taking a screenshot of someone else's words and claiming they're your creative work under copyright protections or your intellectual property is equally as stupid. I think claiming a script makes sense. Like, if Vangelina is saying word for word what Ethel has said in her videos, then yeah, I can understand claiming plagiarism then. Like, at that point, you're just taking a script from someone else's video, copy-pasting it, and then passing it off as your own word for word. You didn't write any of that script. But screenshots of anything online are just captures of things that are already publicly accessible. Anyone can look up and just screenshot it themselves. A lot of the archives and screenshots of Lily Orchard's Tumblr or Twitter are posted to multiple different sites for either archival or gossiping purposes, such as like the Lily Orchard Gossip blog or Reddit, or most notoriously, Kiwi Farms. It's still publicly accessible. Anyone can take a screenshot of a public post, but they can't then take that screenshot and claim copyright. Now, the reason I bring up the HBomberguy video is because Ethel brings it up as a justification for her asking for a percentage of the revenue generated from Vangelina's video. When HBomberguy exposed James Somerton, he spoke about how Somerton's plagiarism impacted the actual authors financially, as Somerton made a ton of money in donations on his Patreon and being part of the YouTube partnership program, receiving ad revenue for his videos. So, to compensate, James claims that he was already, or he would like to, set up a fund with HBomberguy to refund all of the authors who he stole content from. It's most likely why Ethel responded in these emails the way she did. She felt like this financially hit her own series that Vangelina stole from, and people would rather watch Vangelina's summarized, plagiarized content over Ethel's coverage. The problem is, I don't really see that holding much weight either. So Vangelina's video on Lily Orchard is fully monetized, and she has gotten 126,000 views in 2 weeks, which is a fairly healthy amount and roughly like $1,000 in ad revenue, excluding Patreon funding and the HelloFresh sponsorship. Now, Ethel has all of her Lily Orchard series fully monetized as well, and that's 7 videos with ads running on all of them. If you add up all of the views across all 7 videos, Ethel's series punches in at 1.2 million views. And sure, it took a while for those views to collect over time because those videos were being released within the span of 5 years. But this content performed well, especially her video about Stockholm, which clocks in at over 500,000 views. So to say Vangelina's video financially devastated all of this hard work or the video's performances, it really doesn't, because one, her video is roughly a summary of Lily Orchard's controversies, if anything. I mean, if someone wanted to do like the deepest dive ever, Ethel's series is clearly the standout go-to, just based on like collective view count alone. And the second thing is that Vangelina made in 2 weeks what would only be like 10% of all of Ethel's view count combined. And that would make sense because she only covers roughly like 10% of the rabbit hole. So sure, people are tuning into like Vangelina's coverage on Lily Orchard en masse right now, but this is simply because it's a newer video coming out, and people like to hype up the new release of a video. And it's also like a new topic in comparison to all of the Illuminati coverage that she's done. So there might have been like an incentive to watch something that isn't Illuminati coverage for once. It's something new. Whilst I understand Ethel's frustration with like shorter summarized content on Lily performing better than her deep dives, part of that kind of has to do with the fact that like people's attention spans are shorter now more than ever with things like TikTok and YouTube shorts. So shorter form content is performing well, sure, but like it clearly is not performing better if your combined coverage that spans hours upon hours, view-wise, has a better turnout. Hell, view-wise for Vangelina, her content seems to fluctuate a lot. Like, you'll have one that only gets 7.3k here, but then this one has 116,000 views, right? So this performance of her video might be the algorithm favoring a hot topic. Lily Orchard is constantly controversial. She's like Onision. Talking about her is guaranteed to garner you a huge amount of views just by default, because hating on Lily Orchard has become like its own little circle jerk. So Vangelina hopping on that, I mean, sure, can look like a lazy cash grab, but by Lily Orchard always being a hot button topic, technically speaking, all of Ethel's videos could also be seen as a cash grab. And finally, the real thing that really turned me off from this video is this final section.
But in 100 small ways, you have snatched the bread from my starving mouth, pilfering our work to create a monstrosity, something that is antithetical to everything we are building towards the essence of thought. Yet, even worse than that, when I reached out to you about the harm your actions were doing to try and reach an accord, you spurned me. You pretended to ignore my cries whilst editing the description of your video, acting like you were an honourable person. When I did not give up, you threatened me. We are beyond making amends at this point. I gave you that chance twice. I will make sure your reputation burns upon fires fueled by your own history. I hope you enjoyed your series on Illuminati's downfall, because that is where you are headed. I hope it was worth it.
Now, there was already something about Ethel's video that made me think that she was approaching this in bad faith. I mean, there was demanding money from Vangelina, directly going after her sponsors, saying in her follow-up email that she's gonna make the expose video anyways. Hi, I'm aware that you've updated your video's description since my email to include everyone you plagiarized, excluding me, in spite of the fact that I can prove you ripped 13 minutes of your video from my series, including through the clever application of data triangulation? What the fuck is she talking about? I am, suffice to say, disappointed with your course of action, and would like to give you one final chance to make amends before I go public with everything. The way that she words both emails makes it look like that she was kind of prepped to go public online about this from the get-go. Unless, of course, Vangelina paid her, gave her credit, and gave her a public apology. But even more so, there's the fact that Ethel was already planning a follow-up video on March 2nd. 3 days before Vangelina would address Ethel publicly. But even if all of that doesn't spell out bad faith here, this quote right here from her own video pretty clearly spells that out. We are beyond making amends at this point. I gave you that chance twice. I will make sure your reputation burns upon fires fueled by your own history. And look, I'm sorry, but that's so over the top. Like, this is a fucking supervillain monologue. Even though Ethel says that she went into these emails hoping that she missed something and that this would be a misunderstanding.
I was hoping that there might be something I just missed, I'm not sure what, but something, anything, that might have explained things other than this person ripped off years of my work.
This final statement contradicts this idea entirely. Wanting to burn her reputation and saying that they are beyond compromise is so dramatic. And look, I'm really trying here my best to understand Ethel's frustrations, because I agree to the sentiment that she worked really hard on this, but you can't claim copyright on screenshots. Those screenshots are not your intellectual property. Even if you included those screenshots within your intellectual property, you can't claim the screenshot itself as part of your intellectual property. You can't copyright publicly accessible screenshots, and she didn't cite your video word for word and present that as her own at any point. And in both of your emails, you do not provide any sort of example of this 13 minutes out of the 38 where your content was clearly plagiarized. So Vangelina does address the accusations with this video here, and to her own credit, she is way better at, like, addressing things and, like, talking about stuff on camera, off script, at least better than myself. Vangelina does address some things that I personally don't really think need to be addressed. Like, the lies about her nationality could have been, like, completely cut out of the video entirely. And maybe addressing why she removed her HBomberguy video could have been totally cut, because ultimately it's not really that big of a deal. But I understand why that was addressed, because she admits in this video that she did not handle the criticism properly, at least on Twitter she didn't. It was in this video that she shows this screenshot of Ethel going after her sponsors around the time that she was sent her emails. Hey, at HelloFresh, I just wanted to know, what's your policy when it comes to YouTubers you sponsor who have been discovered to be plagiarizing their content. I myself have been made the victim of one such person and wanted to know if there would be any sort of action taken. Thank you. I have also followed this up with an email to your investment team, just in case you'd prefer to handle this matter in private. Vangelina explains that the only reason that she didn't immediately respond to Ethel is because, from her perspective, Ethel was demanding monetary compensation on the basis of copyright. So at that point, it does become a legal issue.
I just want to explain, well, I guess firstly why I didn't respond. And I think you need to understand from my perspective that this is somebody emailing me, claiming that I've plagiarized them and demanding money so that they don't make a video about me. In my eyes, when I get this, it feels like somebody's trying to extort me for money. And that is a serious legal issue. That's not something I can just immediately respond to and be like, no, or here's some money. So I really did feel like this was somebody trying to extort me. I still kind of do.
Because, one, Ethel is making direct claims of plagiarism and stealing copywritten works. And two, she is demanding money in exchange for her not making an expose with the intended purpose of burning her reputation. You know, Ethel's exact wording. Like, when you demand money in exchange to not have a video like this being posted for the world to see, where you outright state your intentions are not to make amends, but to burn down another content creator's reputation. Not that this is like outright malicious, but it is revealing the true intentions behind this smear campaign, which is to demand money from someone who did not plagiarize your work based on your screenshots that you provide. Not only is that outright malicious, but it's revealing the true intentions behind this smear campaign, which is to demand money from someone who did not plagiarize your work based on screenshots you took. I mean, if that were the case, you'd have to demand payment from Definitely Bored Oranges. So as you can see, this is Definitely Bored Oranges, who was also credited in the description of Vangelina Skov's video. This is his video from 3 months ago, Lily Orchard is Insane, and oh wait, what's this? This is the exact same screenshot that Essence of Thought claims to be their taken screenshot from their series on Lily Orchard. So by that logic, Definitely Bored Oranges also owes Essence of Thought money. Now, I've already mentioned that Vangelina credits Definitely Bored Oranges instead of Ethel, and the reason why is because some of Ethel's screenshots were also used in this video. Whilst Orange's first video that he made over a year ago uses screenshots from Kiwi Farms. More specifically, this is from like the initial post that starts off the Lily Orchard thread on Kiwi Farms, which makes sense to Vangelina's claims that during her research process on Lily Orchard, she did look through the Kiwi Farms thread.
I looked at, well, Encyclopedia Dramatica was one of them, random Reddit posts, random Tumblr posts, and quite a lot of the stuff actually came from a Tumblr blog, which I originally linked in the description of my Lily Orchard video. I think it was called Lily Orchard Gossip Blog. I should mention as well, one of the sources that I didn't mention, and I still haven't mentioned, this, admitting this is probably going to get me in trouble, but was actually Kiwi Farms, and I only really went there to see archives, screenshots of things like that. I didn't link that, and I haven't linked it now because Kiwi Farms is a very controversial place, understandably so. And it's a message board, so it's not actually a source, but I did get some archive links and screenshots and background information from there, which I then went on, obviously, to like verify from other places.
And given that she also credits Oranges and not the Kiwi Farms threads directly, as Oranges used the farms as a source,
with a supposed father who hated her and a wannabe US Marine for a brother, Lily escaped to the place known as the World Wide Web, and once that happened, everything else happened as a result.
It makes sense how she found Ethel's screenshots without watching Ethel's videos. Now, Lily Orchard's Kiwi Farms thread is far too big for me to shift through. It would take me forever to shift through 1,500 pages just to make sure that Ethel's screenshots didn't end up on the farms. But I do think that sourcing Oranges, who refers to the farms in his own video, is at least some explanation as to why Vangelina cites Oranges and not Kiwi Farms directly. Now, because Kiwi Farms does have a reputation for being like a transphobic space, it doesn't help to disprove this idea that Vangelina openly associates or allows transphobia in her comment section or her like YouTube community. But to Vangelina's credit, she said that she briefly searched through the farms, not that the entirety of the video's research came from Kiwi Farms. Plus, she does address the transphobic comments as a good point that Ethel had presented in her video, and said that she should monitor her comments better.
Of that video, there were some transphobic comments. I am genuinely glad that this was brought up because, well, firstly, I didn't see them, and I should have seen them. I should have garnered and assumed this is a controversial person who is trans. I should have assumed there will be transphobia in the comments, and I didn't, and that is a failing on my part. I should have done a better job of monitoring the comments on that video, but I didn't, and I am genuinely sorry for that, and I am glad it was brought up because this is something that I needed to address.
But I can sort of understand Vangelina not seeing these comments because she has well over 1,000 comments, and without any sort of like YouTube moderation or having like extra people help moderate the comments, it's understandable how a couple of those comments did pass through. The biggest thing that really made me feel for Vangelina is her self-admitting that she is afraid of Ethel.
I can't possibly plagiarize something that I haven't even watched. And I say this not to be mean, just to be fully honest so you understand where I'm coming from. I wouldn't have used Essence of Thought as research for my video because I don't trust them as a source of information given what I know about them and how I've seen how she goes after people. I don't know how to say this properly, but, and you're not supposed to admit things like this online, but I am terrified of Ethel. Like truly terrified of Ethel because I have seen her history of harassing people and she doesn't stop. And everything is blown to the extreme. Lies are told, things are distorted, and she just doesn't stop. There's one creator, you all know who I'm talking about, if you're aware of Essence of Thought at all, who she's been harassing for 5 years. So at this point of this email, I'm freaking out, thinking, if I respond in any way without just giving them money to shut them up, which I don't want to give somebody money to shut them up. I don't want to give somebody hush money. I'm not Jeffree Star. Like that's not what I'm trying to do. So I'm thinking if I respond in any way, this person is going to be furious. This person's going to go ballistic and it's going to actually be worse.
Knowing like surface level information about Ethel Thurston and seeing how she has handled this situation so far with her comments in her video about Vangelina, I can sort of already see where this is going, right? Like I can kind of imagine how Ethel would respond to this comment. Well, Vangelina is transphobic because she's afraid of me, a trans person, and is trying to make me out to be scary and dangerous, which is a common right-wing tactic to make trans people the dangers of society that is an active threat to cisgender people. She's trying to victimize herself when I'm just trying to get credit for my video. But there are things that are documented that makes this fear kind of warranted, and it has nothing really to do with Ethel's identity. It has more to do with how aggressive Ethel is online. Like, for example, there is a whole series on the Essence of Thought YouTube channel talking about Rachel Oates, with the final video being 3 hours long, surviving Rachel Oates. Now, Ethel has accused Rachel of various things, from being friends with violently transphobic people, whatever that means, and accusing Rachel Oates of doxing trans people. Now, I haven't seen Ethel's coverage, and most of Rachel's responses to these claims are all gone now, but there is an archived Twitter post that was recovered that I think really helps show how aggressive Ethel can be. Now, I don't know if this was directed at at Rachel, considering in the reply thread, there's like 3 other people. But during the height of Ethel's expose and claiming that she suffered from violent transphobic abuse at the hands of Rachel directly, Rachel had a pretty awful mental breakdown. It was well documented that she created a very triggering video that was a terrible decision on Rachel's end. But in that video that she is replying to Ethel's accusations, she self-harms and she records the aftermath of her self-harm. And I'm not going to put Rachel down for that. As much of a triggering and dangerous decision this was, I also understand that she was getting video after video made on her, directly putting her at fault for things that it seems like other people associated with her did, but not her directly, if that makes any sense. It's also important to note that Rachel has been open about being on the autism spectrum, which is not to use like autism as an excuse for this, but because people on the spectrum have trouble interpreting like social situations, she probably didn't understand how harmful socially this was for her audience. So how does Ethel take the news that Rachel self-harmed? That is a demonstrable lie. Stephen Woodford, who I don't know who that is a violent transphobe, and you are all his fucking church. You turn a blind eye, target and abuse the victims of his violence, lie to protect his name, do the world a favor, and exit it. She can back out of defending violent transphobes at any time. I cannot stop being trans. I am fighting for my survival by default. She is using self-harm as a call to action for standing up for my rights. I hope she gets help and have taken steps to ensuring she is safe right now. But in the long run, she can't use self-harm as a means to silence marginalized voices. Else, that'll be the go-to strategy for all bigots. Telling the entire trans community that defending themselves is secondary to Oates' comfort in choosing to defend violent bigots is not on. Now, I agree that Ethel is not directly responsible for Rachel's mental health. That is Rachel's job to manage and maintain herself. She's a grown adult. Ethel did not make Rachel self-harm and post about it publicly online. That is still Rachel's own adult actions. And look, I haven't seen all of Ethel's coverage on Rachel. I can't disprove Ethel's thoughts on Rachel or the evidence that she collected to come to her conclusions because 1, I haven't gone through the evidence, and 2, I don't watch or know Rachel Oates, so I don't have a dog in this race. But if your response to someone trying to disprove your claims against them is to tell them to exit the world, effectively, Ethel just told Rachel to kill herself. And then when she does put herself in a harmful position, you dismiss that and say like, well, I have to be on the defensive by default. I'm sorry, but you already lost. I'm not inclined to believe anything you say. The way you handled Rachel trying to address you by telling her to do the world a favor and exit it does not make me want to consider that you do anything in good faith. Because that's utterly disgusting. So I think given Ethel's past history of harassing someone to the point of self-harm, I think Vangelina had a good reason to be fearful of this person, especially since their first interaction with them was essentially, give me money or I'll expose you as a plagiarist and burn down your reputation. One of the many things that I'm really happy that Vangelina's video addresses is the part where Ethel opens up about her sexual assault. Because in the grand scheme of her claims of plagiarism, that has nothing to do with any of this, and more so feels like a tactic to guilt trip Vangelina and the audience because, well, you don't want to be hypercritical of a rape victim, right? And I fail to see how that's relevant to the claims of plagiarism. Like, just like Vangelina says herself, it is jumping to the most extreme conclusions and overinflating the story to its worst possible outlook. That section, in terms of plagiarism, which is the biggest claim of the video. It's the claim that is highlighted in the title of the video. It's even more so heavily asserted with the thumbnail saying that Vangelina is straight up just scamming her viewers. If your big claim to justify a video like this is because of plagiarism, then I think you should stick with that and not go on some sort of rant on how not explaining specific context and over-explaining a lie actually gives Lily ammunition somehow. Like, Ethel, it's really not that deep. See, I'm looking at this in one of two ways, right? Either Ethel feels entitled to the Lily Orchard story, or she feels because her video series exist, that there shouldn't be any more videos on Lily Orchard. And if there is, if those videos coming after her series don't give the full explanation and context of every single controversy and just sums up Lily's online history, then apparently they're doing a shitty half-assed job at what Ethel has already done in their videos. And any follow-up video by anyone else is either worthless or harmful somehow. But because of Ethel's behavior, in my opinion, I don't think she's entitled to any apology or credit, because this is just obviously so greedy. This has nothing to do with plagiarism. And the fact that they are intentionally trying to make someone look far worse than they actually are by bringing up shit that is not fucking relevant. So, to conclude this video with a white background in a different location. Background consistency has never been a thing on the Lazy Bedhead show. I don't know what you guys expected. So I think now is a good time to talk about this call-out culture that we've been seeing, more specifically with like the HBomberguy and James Somerton stuff. Really, this sentiment can be applied to any form of call for accountability. And when I talk about call-out culture, I'm not talking about cancel culture, as I feel these are two completely different things. Cancel culture's goal is to leave a person completely isolated and irredeemable. It's to imply some form of consequence that the person calling for their cancellation sees fit. And usually those consequences are losing their jobs, their income, their success, their personal relationships, all of which are irrelevant to whatever they're being canceled for. And the mass majority of the time is ineffective anyways. That's different than, say, accountability culture, which isn't calling for the complete destruction of a person's reputation or an expose of their dirty laundry, but rather bringing awareness to something that can be seen as either problematic or harmful, and calling for accountability and change. Now, you can argue whether HBomberguy wanted to hold James Somerton accountable or wanted to cancel his whole career. He certainly does use definite language that would suggest the latter. But I think that more than anything, accountability is something that should be requested when someone shows a repeat of behaviors that indicates a lack of or an outright refusal of growth. James Somerton built his entire platform off of plagiarism, and he had already been called out for it once before, but he just outright denied ever doing so, and at some points shifted blame onto his other writers. I think it was fair in that sense that we ask for some accountability after failing to address the issues time and time again. Whether Vangelina Skov had one instance of plagiarism or multiple instances of plagiarism, she should be held accountable if she had actually committed plagiarism. But in saying that, accountability is not wishing for the complete destruction of her reputation and all of her Patreon earnings and HelloFresh sponsorship. It is done in the hopes that compromise can be made and a chance for her to do better. Like, usually in a case of hush money, the person who is issuing the hush money silences the person coming forward, not the other way around. Now, in the grand scheme of things, what does this have to do with call-out culture? I think it's the fact that so many people are so keen on looking for the next Illuminati or the next James Somerton that they are willing to jump onto any possible accusation of plagiarism without looking at the evidence or considering any sort of benefit of the doubt. I've even seen people's comments on Twitter in support of Ethel, saying that she left Vangelina with no chance of having any plausible deniability. And I have to ask, like, did you and I watch the same video? Because, like, how could you possibly think that screenshots are plagiarized work? Because that's the biggest piece of Ethel's evidence. Overlaying screenshots and saying that they said roughly the same things. But Lily Orchard is also such a punching bag and an obvious criticized person that the one popularized opinion to draw from is that Lily Orchard is a creepy weirdo. Like, that's not an uncommon statement. Anyone can come up with that with just surface level research, not even doing like a deep dive. The fact that Ethel tries to say that this is the next Illuminati is so ironic and also so not even remotely comparable, because plagiarism is the least of Illuminati's crimes. And plagiarism isn't really what Vangelina highlights most covering that story anyways. It's more so like the abuse of staff and collaborators. And I mean, sure, the plagiarism is part of that. It's what started the Illuminati downfall to begin with, claiming plagiarism where it wasn't applicable. So by understanding that, it seems like Ethel actually has more in common with Illuminati than she likes to think. I think people want so badly to have another James Somerton moment, to weed out a plagiarist the same way he was and publicly lambast them, that in some aspects, it feels like people who are part of like this call-out culture, they want to see people fail. They want careers to end in such a drastic fashion because it's fun to see people fail when people feel like it's deserved. I'm gonna emphasize this point very clearly. If someone is a repeat offender of something obviously wrong, they should be called out for that if they are refusing to take accountability or show any kind of growth and learning from past shitty behaviors. Other than that, like, handling something in private is also an option, which Ethel did go about doing, but it was to demand money for plagiarism that she did not back up with evidence in her email to Vangelina. Like, guys, I'm gonna be so for real. Not everything has to be like an hour-long video expose. And this is coming from someone who makes hour-long video exposés all the time. The irony of that statement is not lost on me at all. Don't worry. Trust me, I'm not unaware of any of the irony of this because I too have engaged in this sort of call-out culture. But at the very least, I do want people's personal lives to be fine. Like, I want them to still be somewhat successful. Even if that's not like intrinsically on YouTube, I don't want them to inherently be a failure. As someone who's also very fearful of failure, I wouldn't want to wish the worst thing I fear upon other people. I just want them to stop doing the shitty things they're doing. And the thing is, right, if I made a deep dive on a subject and someone watches my content and then creates like a summarized, shorter version, like, I'm not gonna demand credit or monetary compensation because we're talking about the same story that is publicly accessible. All of the information is already out there. If Ethel's call out did stick, like, somehow, and people did side with her and say that Vangelina is determined, like, by the court of public opinion to be a plagiarist, then that sets the precedent that plagiarism can be taking screenshots from someone else's content to include in your own content. And that's really fucking stupid. To reiterate, if Vangelina said word for word things that Ethel said in her own content, she would have a stronger case of her work being stolen, because Vangelina would be taking her script and presenting it as her own. From Ethel's own video, she does not present an example of this. Her evidence is based on screenshots that Vangelina used, and using screenshots is not plagiarism. If taking your screenshots is plagiarism and copyright infringement, then definitely Bored Oranges would also be getting hit. Or anyone who takes your screenshots and posts them elsewhere. Look, I've tried being empathetic because, look, I understand wanting to be paid when your work is utilized elsewhere. But this is not like a situation where you can claim monetization on a video by claiming plagiarism. This isn't like a music group filing a copyright claim on a video using a segment of their music to claim the ad revenue for the usage of their song. This is someone trying to paint paints someone else as the next Illuminati, but then makes herself look more in alignment to Blair by claiming plagiarism where it doesn't exist. It also shows how people will maliciously hope and pray for the next YouTube expose on plagiarism so that they can join the collective community beatdown of a content creator, instead of hoping for reform and an explanation. I mean, I don't doubt that we won't be hearing from Ethel again, as she has a pattern of doing this sort of thing and assuming the absolute worst of people, so it's only a matter of time. I want to thank you so much for making it through another long video. I imagine, knowing me, I don't ever know when to shut the fuck up. But if this intrigues you for some reason and you like listening to me nonstop ramble for hours, I don't know why, but if you do, subscribe and support the Patreon, please. I'd like to thank all of the amazing patrons scrolling on screen, as well as a special shout out to my $5 Patreon supporters: The Piper at Dawn, Jordan Ogle, Mamiko Megame, Grimmy, Pyro Fallen, Average Cyrus User, Gamblor, Bob, Pro Voice Actor 1 Dubs, Jellyfish Princess, Fun Stuffies, Matryoshka Mark, Trippy, Etch-a-Sketch, Rudy Jazz, Johnny Boy, Rice Maddie, Pastel UFOs, Gwendolyn Von Holt, Roxas the Hunter, Smorgast, and Amber Lay. Y'all are awesome as always for all of the support, and that's gonna be it for me. Please do not go harass anyone we've spoken about today. I understand that y'all have free will and will do whatever you want. Just know that I am not supportive of direct harassment, death threats, or transphobia. Too long didn't watch. Screenshots are not plagiarism, but plagiarism is still bad, so don't do that. The end.